So a good example of why I really think snapshot tests are valuable. Back around version 2.80 of the CDK, they fundamentally introduced a breaking change, which has been very rare in the version 2 of the CDK. They did this a lot in V1 because, as you said earlier, creating abstractions is difficult. By the time version 2 came out, they really had these things figured out really well, and we didn't see as many breaking changes. But back in 2.80, I think it was, they introduced a breaking change to the EKS module. The EKS module and the cluster that you created there would go out and create a role and give access to that role that was basically full-blown access to the cluster. And a secured internal security audit came back and they said, that's really against the well-architected framework and against good security practices. So they introduced this change that said, okay, we're no longer going to do that automatically for you. It was called the master's role. And the problem with that was that unless you were really keeping up to date on every single version change and every single release note that came across, you may go from version 2.65 to 2.85. You may be doing a CDK version upgrade because that's just good hygiene. And then all of a sudden you deploy out your EKS changes and you lose access to your cluster because this master's role disappeared. This is where a snapshot test would have immediately exposed that problem. You would have seen in the snapshot, the test would have failed. It would have come back and be like, hey, these things got removed. And that would immediately been the red flag to go, oh, okay, I need to go now make a change to resolve this and to either add that master's role back in manually or to figure out some better way access into the system. And it doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen now, it does tend to be a potentially very destructive thing to go wrong. So that's why I say snapshot testing, they're very simple to write. I use WebStorm as my IDE, but if you use VS Code, you can use Emmet templates. In WebStorm, I use smart templates. You can just 2 keystrokes and boom, you get a snapshot test in place for a stack that takes you less than 10 seconds to write and provides a significant amount of value long-term about the overall safety of your code.